Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to do my best. This is a 10-minute version of maybe an hour-long topic that I've been doing for quite a while. In fact, about 9 or 10 years ago when I started talking about charges for recycling and organic services in franchises, people in this room, including some of you, looked at me like I was declaring nuclear war on recycling. And so I've picked a Dr. Strangelove theme for this presentation. So for decades now, in fact, Mary Lou sent me a picture earlier this morning from 1982 that was referencing this exact problem. We've been lying to people and telling them that recycling is free. And a lot of people in this room have developed the use of those air quotes as they talk about free recycling. The fact of the matter is that recycling has a cost. You put that truck and that driver out on the road, you bring the material to a facility where people and capital are applied, you get a little bit of money back, but there's a net cost for these services, particularly when we're doing them curbside, particularly when we're doing them for commercial and multifamily customers. So we've created the death spiral. We're riding the bomb right now. We've got sin taxes on disposal that incent behavior change. Those incentives are effective. People reduce garbage service levels that you're charging to cover the cost of these services. They reduce disposal. We, in turn, increase rates. And we'll get to a point where we're funding everything on nothing, or very, very little. That last ton that goes into the landfill will be pretty expensive. So what does that look like at the micro level? Well, when you go out to businesses, where are the outreach people in the room that go out to businesses and try and motivate that behavior change? You guys are rock stars, thank you. So you go out there and in a free recycling system, this is what it might look like. You go to the restaurant and they've got 3 cubic yards, 2 times a week of garbage, and you want to get them on organics and recycling, right? So you give them a lot of organic service, you add some recycling service, you downsize their garbage service, and the revenue for your company goes down dramatically. That's not a sustainable model for anybody trying to make a profit in this. What does it do at the macro level for a whole system? Well, what happens is you go about trying to increase rates to keep pace with that. And you may have double-digit rate increases year over year, but you continually find that your actual revenues don't keep up with those rate increases that you're applying. So you've got frustrated customers because their bills are going up. You've got a service provider who's not making money on this. You've really got yourself squarely in the death spiral there. So what are the rules? How do we get out of it? Well, in any system where we're trying to provide pricing incentives across all industries, there's sort of 3 things that have to be there. One is that the incentive has to be significant to the entity. So this incentive that you apply to a large business, very different than the incentive that you would apply at the household level, right? There also have to be actionable alternatives. If there is no choice but to do the behavior, then you can have all the pricing signals in the world, you won't have any motivation, you won't have any movement. And then you have to have customer awareness of both the incentive and the alternative that you want them to take. So for those of you that raised your hands a minute ago, this is your job, customer awareness, getting out there to those businesses, those multifamily properties and explaining to them, we do have an incentive, even if we charge for this service, and here's the thing we'd like you to do instead. So I've got a few examples of places where charges for recycling are working. First one is in the city of Livermore, and we've got 2007 under their old franchise with free recycling. We have 2011, new franchise, robust outreach customer education program, and then 2015 with mandatory recycling and mandatory organics through Alameda County's mandatory recycling ordinance. So you're seeing that movement even in a system where customers get charged half as much for garbage or for recycling or organics as they do for garbage. It's not scaring people away. Another example in the city of Fresno. City of Fresno's commercial and multifamily sector has 2 different haulers, one in the north, one in the south, and you see some pretty big differences in the performance of those 2 systems. Well, the pricing incentive to the customer is exactly the same in the north and the south, But the performance of the system is dramatically different, and it's because of this. The site visits that happen to educate those customers that they are still getting an incentive even though they charge for it. The last one, this is 3 communities on the Monterey Peninsula that just switched over in July from a free unlimited recycling and organics system to a pay-for recycling and organics system in the commercial and multifamily sector. The prior hauler had been getting sort of high teens, low 20s diversion rates out of those customers in terms of material collected. And almost immediately, the new hauler did a lot of outreach before they started. They've done a lot of outreach between July and December. In fact, they touched every single AB 341 customer in 6 months to talk about the new program. And this was hard. This was a big lift for those recycling coordinators who were used to selling free recycling and having to sell paid recycling. It wasn't easy, but they made it work. And that outreach and education has brought them from the high teens, low 20s into the high 20s, low 30s. So that's just 6 months of performance. I'm really excited to see how that will roll out. So I'm working towards what I'm calling Pay-As-You-Throw 2.0. And that includes a number of different features. I'm not going to be able to go through all of them today, but one of the things that we're learning, if you look at the single family sector, people need to understand what they're paying for. That's been hidden for too long, and as we go to every other week garbage collection and maybe even further than that, we're finding that people need to understand the value of all of the services that they're getting. Now, just because you itemize those services on somebody's bill doesn't mean that they get to stop that service. In the commercial and multifamily sector, it's a lot more complex. We need to work on aligning costs with the benefits and the actual the services provided. We need to look at cost-saving measures, but again, we've got to get people more and more comfortable, and it's a phased process with paying for recycling and organic services that we're providing. And of course, we're in California, so you've got to think through the regulatory picture. Wow, I'm really killing it on time. On Prop 13, Prop 218, Prop 26, there's this progression where customers are telling us, we want to pay the actual cost of the services that we're receiving. We want to get rid of subsidies. We want to get rid of false incentives. The legislative slate recently and then the judicial slate on these items is increasingly telling us we need to relay actual costs to customers. And these are propositions. They're coming from the public. They're asking for this. I think we need to move towards it. So, got a little bit more time than I thought for questions from the audience today, or obviously contact me after if you want to have a deeper discussion on this.
Yeah, we've got time for questions. Thank you.
Hey, Rob, those jurisdictions, those cities that have started the charges, did they reduce the trash charges as well, kind of in your, to reflect the actual cost of just taking a trash, or did they just kind of have charges for recycling and compost and keep the old rate structure still in place for trash?
Really good question, Tim. So the question is, as they adopted these charges for recycling, did they reduce their garbage service charges? When we were doing the rate structuring in each of these communities, the total revenue requirement was considered, and now we have recycling and organics profit centers that we can count against that revenue requirement. So yes, if we had to build that all into the garbage charges, the garbage rates would be higher were it not for these. Now, none of these agencies, actually one, and I'll get to that in a second, almost none of these agencies are charging the actual cost of providing the recycling and organic services. By and large, there's a subsidy of some sort by doing this at 15 or 50 or 75% of the garbage rate. The one exception, and I think the Oakland experience would tell us not to do this en masse, is in Pebble Beach, they have one large commercial customer, and it pays the actual cost of organic service. That's the Pebble Beach company, and they're going to do the right thing almost no matter what it costs. So it was determined that they would pay the actual rate, and it's about 144% of the cost of garbage service to provide organics in that environment. Ruth.
The other alternative is to separate waste and compensation. I think the gas spiral example that you gave is about incentivizing the customer rather than the service provider. I think that until we can make the service provider whole for their full cost,
Yeah, so I'm not going to repeat that whole thing because there was a lot there. But essentially, Ruth's point is the other element here is disconnecting the retail rate from the wholesale rate, the compensation to your service provider. And that's something that HF&H has done for 26 years now. In some places, we've gotten a black eye for doing it because it does, when you have revenue reconciliations in the rates, it does create a little bit more volatility when they're high performance systems. But I absolutely agree, Ruth, you have to incentivize both at the retail level and at the wholesale level, and the two are sort of in conflict. So it's certainly something that we work towards in the instances that cities are willing to take on those risks. Mark? Well, and that's sort of my point. In each of the three examples I gave, there still is an incentive because recycling volumes and organics volumes are offered at a discount to the equivalent volume of garbage. So what we're finding is it doesn't have to be free to provide that financial incentive to the business. You just have to have enough of a discount. I will tell you in the places where it's 75 or 80% of the garbage rate, it's a little trickier to have that discussion from a sales perspective, but you still can see that movement. I think if we get to true cost of service on recycling and organics, if we don't have mandates with enforcement in place, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for those of you that do that work.
Way back in the back, yeah.
Mr. Gertman.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. Well, let's go back here and then we'll go to
Okay.
Richard.
What is the incentive for, I mean, if I tell my customer that it's free to recycle, more than likely they're gonna do it. But when they feel like they have to pay, why do it? You throw it all in the garbage anyway, you know what I mean? How do I get around that aspect?
Because the garbage service is still more expensive. So you can still save money in these systems by decreasing your garbage service level and signing up for that recycling service. It's not as much as if it were free and you got to reduce your garbage service level, but there's still some motivator there in the rates in all three of the examples that I showed.
This is like money. So it's $100 for trash, it's $50 for recycling, it's $25 for compost, or something like that. It's just putting numbers on it is helpful.
Yeah, it's a little hard to do in the abstract, but the idea is if you're currently paying $100 for recycling or for garbage service, and you can cut that in half and have that same level of recycling service at 50% of the garbage rate, it's $75 per month versus $100 per month. So you're still seeing some savings there at your bill. But you do have to train your employees on separation, and you do have to have a separate bin in the back of your shop and all of those sorts of things. So,
Yeah, Richard was next, and then we'll go here and then we have to put it off. Yeah.
yeah, and that's where, as Ruth says, disconnecting the wholesale and the retail rates makes some sense. There are systems where it's sort of the cable model of billing, which I think is sort of what you're describing. There's a flat package, and then you pay for your premium services in addition to that. That's actually sort of Livermore's model. They include in their base pricing a cart for recycling and a cart for organics, and if you need more, you pay for the more. So those are other ways of looking at that. Again, I think if we can get to, if we're going towards true cost of service for these services, we need mandates, as you say, the rules of the road to back that up.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to call it. Sorry, I'll get you later. Thank
We can
you,
talk
Rob.
later.
Yeah. All right, yeah, thank you.